This is Open Minds Radio. Here again, your host, UFO paranormal researcher and journalist, Alejandro Rojas.
Hello and welcome to Open Minds Radio. This is Alejandro Rojas, and we have another great show today. If you were concerned about last week, we were supposed to have retired Major George Filer of the U.S. Air Force, and unfortunately, there was some technical difficulties, which is pretty strange. His cell phone just wasn't taking calls. It was some sort of strange anomaly. So we had a problem. Luckily, I think we had a great show still. We had Antonio Huneeus come in, and we were able to talk about some of the latest news, including the French and their releases of UFO information, the Brazil, what they've been doing lately with their UFO research, and then we were also able to get into some of our stories from the magazine, such as the foreign abduction cases. So I love the show. I thought it was great. It's always good to have Antonio on because he's a wealth of knowledge. However, this week we have Yvonne Smith. And Yvonne Smith has been an abduction researcher for quite some time. She's been in the business for a long time. She began researching the UFO phenomena in the 80s, and in the 90s, after 2 years of studies and 1,000 hours of an internship, she received her certification from the California Hypnosis Motivation Institute. In the 90s, she expanded her practice to include abductees to assist them and encourage them to work through and cope with their PTSD. So we'll talk about that. And then many of her subjects were referred to her by physicians and psychologists. So, she's got a great reputation working with this sort of stuff. She also founded an organization called the Close Encounter Resource Organization, which maintains active monthly support group meetings. So they have meetings with where they bring in different speakers and things like that. So we'll talk to her a lot about that because she's going to have Stan Romanek coming on soon to speak out there, and she's real excited about that. And that's one of the reasons she called me to be on the show. So, which is great because I've wanted to talk to her for a long time. So I'm excited about that. Of course, we've got our new time here. We're an hour and a half now with no commercials except for our own, little promo things. Those don't count, though, because they're not off-topic, weird, and they're not like these real conservative Laura Schlesinger type of stuff. But the new time is exciting because it's longer. We also, of course, can be seen on video at openminds.tv. So go there and go to the radio tab, and we've got a chat where you can talk to us. There's also chatters, of course, in the blog talk. And if you have any questions, you can go in there and ask them, and we will ask them of our guests. So thanks for joining us on this holiday weekend. The UFO conference, also I should talk about, Ufo Congress. I want to tell you guys that you need to register early to our UFO Congress coming up here in February 23rd to the 27th. And why do you need to register early? Because we really have limited hotel rooms. We're taking over this beautiful resort in the Fountain Hills area. I think their actual address is Scottsdale, but it's actually a little out there in the desert. Beautiful place out there. And the entire hotel is going to be ours. It's upscale, but not upscale prices. So you'll want to get your room there. The pricing is a little higher than it was in Laughlin, Nevada, but these rooms are, beautiful, and you can share rooms too. If you have some buddies that you want to share a room with, that's fine. Maybe you fit 12, 13. I'm sure that there's enough floor space to, if you got creative, fit possibly 24 people in one room. And, it's one of those things, don't ask, don't tell type of deal. So come on to the conference. Bring all of your buddies. There's also campgrounds, too, and you can find out more about this at ufocongress.com. Now, the day before the conference, what we're going to be doing, some of you may know that there's a film fest. It's called the EBE Awards that go along with the UFO Congress. Because we've shortened the Congress a bit, and we've got a lot of activities happening in the evening. What we've done with the film festival is we're having a day of film watching the day before the conference. So this is for the hardcores who want to see all the documentaries and who want to judge these documentaries. You can stay here all day to watch these things and then judge them. And then during the conference, every night we're going to show the best of the best. We're going to show the top 3 in every category. So you're still going to see the top movies. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Plus, you'll be able to make some of the events we're going to have. We're really excited about this Skywatch that we're going to be doing out there. The night skies out in the desert, of course, are beautiful. You can see the Milky Way and everything, and we're going to be having some night vision goggles and equipment where you could go out there and look at the skies. And all of this is after something that Fort McDowell always does. And Fort McDowell, as I've mentioned before, is on a reservation. So they have some Native American storytelling and some guys dressed up like cowboys and stuff out there. And they're serving hot dogs and beer and stuff like that. And we'll go enjoy that before the Skywatch. So we're really excited about that. We're really excited about the whole event in total. So come and join us at the UFO Congress, ufocongress.com. And, of course, you can also find out more at openminds.tv. What else you're going to find out at openminds.tv is not only a bunch of really cool stories that we write ourselves on a regular basis, but a lot of the news and the headlines through conventional media throughout the world that are talking about UFOs. And people all over the world are talking about UFOs. And as usual, today we have our news correspondent, Jason McClellan, right here sitting next to me in the studio to tell us all about it. Yo, buddy.
Greetings, Alejandro, and hello, world. This is your Open Minds News Brief for Labor Day, Monday, September 6, 2010. A couple weeks ago, I mentioned how some UK travel agencies are starting to market UFO tourism, where they encourage travel to locations that have either had a significant UFO incident in the past or that are currently experiencing frequent UFO activity. Well, last week, the website IO9 published an article that offers another suggestion for UFO tourism: a road trip to Europe's UFO Memorials. This proposed trip includes 2 memorials, one in Sweden and one in Poland, 15 hours away from each other. In 1946, a hockey player saw a UFO land just outside of Ängelholm, Sweden. A monument was built to commemorate the sighting, and it features a scale representation of the UFO. In 1978, a UFO allegedly landed in Immelsen, Poland, where 2 small green humanoids abducted a farmer. The memorial was built in 2005 to remember the event. We have an article on openminds.tv about this case that Antonio wrote.
Yeah, the second one, and it's cool because if you look at the article, we also have some comic book pages that were done on this case, and it's an interesting case. I didn't know about the Swedish one, though. That's pretty cool.
And it's cool that they would build a memorial for a sighting. I mean, that one was just a sighting. It wasn't an abduction. But
yeah, that would be cool. If every sighting we could build memorials, we'd have memorials all over the place.
There would be memorials everywhere.
It would look like UFO City.
And that might be more worthwhile for a road trip.
Yeah.
Because then you wouldn't have to drive 15 hours to the next memorial.
Yeah, we've just got Roswell and then all these other weird things.
Here's an update to a story we reported last week. Images captured by a hunter's motion-activated camera in Texas contained an odd string of lights, which many thought could be a UFO. Well, after investigating the photos, Texas Mutual UFO Network Chief Investigator Fletcher L. Gray determined that the lights in the photos were simply the result of camera malfunction. According to Gray, for an unknown reason, the camera's shutter was staying open, and when the infrared strobe would fire, the camera would capture the bank of lights. The strobe had 14 LED bulbs, and that's how many lights appear in the photos.
Yeah, it's weird how that can happen, but I think he really figured it out because, 14, and when you look at it, they do look like the little LED bulbs. So he figured it out, and it made a lot of news before he figured it out.
It did. It was big news, and looking at the photos and hearing the person who owned the camera describe what was back there, there weren't any roads, there weren't any buildings.
Right.
And looking at these things that looked like they were floating above the trees,
Yeah.
it were really cool photos, and you couldn't really tell what it was.
Yeah.
But the bank of LED lights makes a lot of sense. They're always oriented the same way and the same number.
Yep.
So I think he figured it out.
Yep. Good job out there.
In a recent poll conducted by 60 Minutes and Vanity Fair, there are more Americans who believe in ghosts and UFOs than there are people who think Sarah Palin would be an effective president. I thought that was kind of a funny poll.
Yeah, that's really, well, they pulled that out of there, but I think that's what they were shooting for with the politics stuff. But 30% was their number who believe in UFOs, which is a little lower than the latest poll.
Right.
And some of these polls, the more informal ones, are a lot larger than that. But still, 30% is a lot of people.
It is.
It's 1 out of 3 people.
And there seem to be a lot of these polls done in the past couple of years at least.
Yeah.
More are happening. And the number seems to keep going up.
Well, this one went down a little bit, but it's still a lot of people.
Well, can you expect much from Vanity Fair?
Yeah, exactly.
Residents of Darwin, Australia's Northern Territory want to hold a UFO conference and start a push to have Darwin named the UFO capital of the world. The area has become a hotspot for UFOs, and in fact, one of our news stories last week was about a Northern Territory UFO researcher who, after 30 years of searching, finally saw his first UFO in Humpty Doo, which is right next to Darwin. Darwin thinks that UFO spotting could become a tourist attraction, and if they do manage to put together a conference there, they plan to offer free parking for UFOs.
Oh, perfect. That's very nice of them. Because I don't know if they'd cash in if they tried to charge anyway.
I don't know, but I know that's something that our conference doesn't offer. So.
Oh, you're right. We maybe
so
need to
they
rethink
have an advantage.
that.
Yeah.
Well, and NT News, I think, is the website or the newspaper that has that, and they've been posting quite a bit of UFO news.
They have, and after reading this story and the story from last week, apparently they do have a lot of sightings and a lot of people interested in UFOs there. So they really are going to push to have a conference in Darwin. So
that would be great. I mean, it's wonderful that all of these countries, in fact, to bring up the magazine again, our next issue we've got an article on exopolitics and international, and actually we're going to have another one on this soon. But, I mean, internationally, there's a lot of groups starting up and a lot of conferences. You went to the Barcelona, or did you?
I did not go to Barcelona.
I think our boss did, and there were a lot of people there. So it's getting more popular all over the world, so it's cool to see Australia.
It's definitely cool to see the international stuff. And we talk about the UK a lot.
Yeah.
But Australia's been in the news a lot more lately.
Yep.
It seems like we've talked about a lot of Chinese planetary astronomer Wang Zichao in the past weeks. Well, this week we've got a different Chinese planetary astronomer to talk about. According to Zhu Jin, the curator of the Beijing Planetarium, aliens exist, but have yet to visit our planet. He says that with 1 trillion planets going around fixed stars like the Earth around the Sun, the possibility of our planet being the only one with life is slim. He doesn't believe in UFOs because he doesn't think it's possible for beings living in other galaxies to travel the great distance to get here. He did, however, state his opinion that the best way for us to contact extraterrestrials is with radio signals.
Interesting. Well, he's kind of towing the line of a lot of astronomers, even over here. I mean, the whole SETI thing. But I think he's underestimated with 1 trillion. I think there's more like 10 gazillion. Huh? That's a lot.
I haven't counted lately.
Really? Well, I had a lot to do this weekend. It was a long weekend.
Well, then I'll take your estimate.
10 gazillion.
Gazillion. You might be overestimating there, but
no.
If you count it, I'll trust you.
Yeah.
All right. There seems to be a debate going on in the UK about the frequent sightings that have been occurring in Halifax and Calderdale. We've been talking about these sightings a lot lately. The Evening Courier says that readers have contacted them to report seeing people in the area releasing Chinese lanterns. Many witnesses, though, are fully convinced that what they have witnessed could not possibly be Chinese lanterns because they demonstrate movements that seem to be propelled very rapidly in one direction, then into the other, then straight up, then straight down, blinking lights, changing colors.
Well, and I mean, like you've noted, these Chinese lanterns can come in various different colors, and it makes it easy to call something a Chinese lantern because a lot of sightings are lights in the sky, and then it's easy for people, and unfortunately a lot of people just want a prosaic answer so they can just write it off and they don't have to think about it anymore. But in some of these cases, right, when you look at the details, there's a lot more going on than just some little lantern floating around in the air.
Right. But it continues to make the news week after week.
Yeah. Yep.
Here's an update to another story from last week about a triangle-shaped UFO that allegedly crashed just outside of Fresno, California. Just to recap, for those of you who haven't heard about this yet, on the evening of August 21st, a triangle-shaped UFO reportedly crash-landed on a mountainside just outside of Fresno, California. A family observed the crash and immediately called Jeffrey Gonzalez, the California State Section Director for the Mutual UFO Network. Gonzalez couldn't access the crash site because it was on private land, but from a distant vantage point, he saw unmarked vehicles arriving at the scene and something that resembled an arc welding light. The next morning, Gonzalez saw scorch marks on the mountainside as well as a stingray-shaped craft. Since reporting this story last week, the video taken by Gonzalez has yet to be released. He claims that MUFON has been in possession of a copy for more than a week, and days ago he claimed that he was going to upload it to a friend's computer. Also, Gonzalez has recently commented that he thinks the craft was actually removed by the military before his arriving that evening, which would contradict his previous statements. So who knows what's going on with this story, and who knows if we'll ever see a video.
Well, I hope we do, and it could be like I was thinking maybe he looked at the video or what he thought he was videotaping looked stingray, and then later it didn't really come out in the video, or he noticed it was something other than that. If it was at a great distance, it's hard to make out even a trailer sitting there, you know.
It supposedly was at a great distance, and it was next to some sort of shed or shack or something that was operated or owned by
so he couldn't notice it was a trailer, and he misread it.
The sun reflecting off the side or something.
So we'll see. Hopefully we'll hear something, and he'll tell us what he thinks or something about this video.
It'd be great to see the video. You know, even if not to see the craft, if that isn't actually there, but to see the activity at the night, the welding light and the vehicles arriving.
Right. See a lot of activity and possibly make out what the heck might have been going on.
Right. We'll keep our eyes on this story and bring you any updates as we get them. And a UFO landing pad in France welcomed its first UFO visitor last week. Kind of. UFO port officials had a local artist build a fake UFO to entice real UFOs to use the landing pad. The landing pad was actually built back in 1976, primarily to attract tourists, and it does. Approximately 20,000 people each year visit this UFO port. 1976. So all of this news lately about people pushing UFO tourism, it's been going on for a lot longer than just this year. Right.
That's pretty cool. I mean, I'd love to go check that out. But and it makes sense. I mean, how are they supposed to know that this is where they're supposed to land? And if you don't make a little UFO there to show them, so when they're cruising around, that's where we land. Let's land like next to that one there.
I couldn't find a picture of the actual UFO, so I don't know what it looks like or what they used for their inspiration. But that could also affect who they attract, I would imagine.
That's true.
Because if they're flying around, they see all of our cars and our ships and everything.
Yeah.
How do they know this thing is supposed to be one of theirs?
Yeah. So. Hopefully it's one of it looks like one of the good guys' UFOs. Just in case there's bad guys out there.
You're playing with fire there, I think. It's taking a wild guess at which UFO to put down there.
Yeah.
Hopefully it works. That is it for the news. Remember to check out these stories and more at openminds.tv, your source for UFO-related news. I'm your Open Minds news correspondent, Jason McClellan, and you've been briefed.
All right. Thank you, Jason. And, you know, we never run out of news when we're putting together news for this show because there's just so much of it. And you can go to our website, like I said, and we post news on pretty much a daily basis, unless it's a weekend. We even do some weekends if we've got a lot. And, of course, we're a little late on today's news since it's been the holidays and we've been off messing around or taking it easy. But we'll have some news up later because there is some interesting news. Speaking of China and all the Chinese news, the People's Daily, which is the popular Chinese paper out there, they're talking about another UFO sighting, and there's even a video that was posted by some reporters of this UFO, and it does look very strange. At first you think maybe it's just Venus, or right now Jupiter is really bright in at least the Arizona skies just after dusk. But this thing is, kind of changing colors, and then it sits there, and it seems to even transform its shape. So it's a great video. We'll have that and the news story posted very soon here after the radio show. So check openminds.tv for that. Other things that you're going to find this week on openminds.tv this is an exciting one. This one I'm really excited about. The Rockefeller UFO briefing document. And if you've heard some of my prior interviews with Antonio Huneeus, we've talked about this. And Lawrence Rockefeller, one of the Rockefeller heirs, one of the brothers, had put together, paid for different UFO and paranormal research. And one of the things that they did, which he was probably, he was excited about and he used it often, was a UFO briefing document. And I mentioned Antonio because Antonio was one of the writers for this briefing document. When you look at the cover, he's one of the three people who are listed, along with Dan Berliner, and and Mary Goldbraith, who is actually the wife of a diplomat. These people were well-to-do, society type of people, and she helped because she knew Lawrence Rockefeller put this thing together. Once they put this briefing together, Lawrence Rockefeller had sent it out to his friends, most notably the Clintons, Mr. and Mrs. Clinton. He was working through Hillary Clinton's office to get Bill Clinton to look into UFOs. And according to Grant Cameron, who runs presidentialufo.com, and I think his scenario seems the most accurate, that then Bill Clinton did try to look into UFOs using this evidence that was put together. And during the Clinton years is when the Air Force came up with these Roswell explanations, what they thought was going on with Roswell, the mogul balloon, and the crash test dummies situation, which, of course, many feel does not fit the evidence to the whole Roswell situation. So it's a great document that has all of the best evidence. In fact, that's what it's called, the best available evidence put together. Anyway, it was pretty private. Rockefeller only did like 1,000 of these and sent them around. Of course, some of the organizations that helped put this together, such as MUFON, FUFOR, the Fund for UFO Research, and CUFOS, which is the Center for UFO Research, which is the group that was put together by J. Allen Hynek, the astronomer who worked for Blue Book. Anyways, all of these organizations had some copies, but for my own use, I had put one together on PDF, and it just so happened that Antonio and I were talking to some of his buddies and the current representatives, some people who actually helped work on this document for those other organizations. And we asked, do you think it'd be okay if we posted this online? Because really, it's a great document, and everybody needs to see it and use it for their own reference. And they said, sure. So we've just put that up online where you can download the PDF. Some great cases. Those of you who have been in UFO research for a while will know these cases, but there's also a lot of quotes and quotations. In fact, some of the websites have taken all of these quotes and put it on their website. But you'll see it all here in its original format, and it's just very interesting that this is something that Lawrence Rockefeller put together. And this guy was, not some black sheep of the family. He is noted for helping start the whole Silicon Valley and funding and being a banker to help create all of essentially the computer revolution. He was also a philanthropist, though. He also did work on different things and donating Rockefeller money to organizations to help the planet. So really cool. We're really excited about that. You'll also see a small story and a link to UFOnut.com because Chuck Zukowski, our good buddy, has had another cattle mutilation in the San Luis Valley area. This time it was a horse that was mutilated, and this is kind of a sad story because not only was this horse mutilated, there were also some other strange, anomalous physical effects to the other horses that were at this ranch. And these horses have, emotionally suffered over this thing. You can tell they are traumatized. The brother of the horse that was killed is very protective over the body and letting people near the body. So Chuck talks about how he had to gain the confidence of this horse. But it's really sad that these poor horses have been traumatized and mutilated, and all of these animals. It's very disturbing what the heck is going on out there with these cattle mutilations. So you can read more about that. We, of course, have all the information that Jason brought up about the Triangle UFO in California. And we also have more case files. So as you've noticed, probably, we have been posting some of Michael Schratt's research with CUFOS, the organization I had mentioned earlier, and all of their UFO files. And he is a draftsman, so he puts together these reports into his AutoCAD and then makes some 3D renderings of what the people had seen, and these accompany his story. They're great pictures and they're great renderings. It's cool to see, what these people were talking about in 3D, and to see all of these strange, unusual shapes that have been reported by people. And these are not shapes that are often or always in great distance from the witness. Some of these shapes and objects have been seen fairly close to the witness, so they've been able to get a good look at this object, and he's put that together and all their descriptions. So, and that was the CUFOS files, which is a Center for UFO Studies. That's why I paused earlier, because I couldn't remember the last word. Center for UFO Studies, CUFOS, a great organization that no longer really runs. Instead, really MUFON is the one investigation organization that is doing all of the work out there. And that's why they call MUFON the Mutual UFO Network, because it incorporates a lot of other organizations that worked in the past. Everybody decided, hey, let's work together and figure this out, and that's what they've done. So, we are going to talk to Yvonne Smith in just a couple minutes here. Let's go ahead. We're going to take a short break so we can get Yvonne on the line, and then we'll be back talking about abductions and her work with abductions. And I'm really excited to talk to her because she's been in this for a long time, and she's a wonderful lady. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after a couple Open Minds messages.
Production is proud to present the 20th anniversary of the International UFO Congress, coming to its new home at the Radisson Fort McDowell Resort and Casino in Scottsdale, Arizona. This is the premier annual event for UFO researchers, enthusiasts, and the general public with an interest in mysterious phenomena. Come listen to expert ufologists, government officials, and respected scientists presenting information relating to UFOs, extraterrestrials, crop circles, abductions, cover-ups, and more at the largest UFO conference in the country. The 20th anniversary of the International UFO Congress takes place February 23rd through February 27th. Visit ufocongress.com for more information, including sponsorship and vendor opportunities.
Having been referred to as the CNN of UFOs, OpenMinds.tv is the hub for news relating to the alien UFO phenomenon. With daily updates of exclusive photos, videos, merchandise, and investigations, OpenMinds.tv is bringing UFO and extraterrestrial research to a global audience. The website features the Open Minds store stocked with books, DVDs, and other merchandise, including Open Minds magazine. Visit OpenMinds.tv, the definitive source for UFO-related news. That's www.openminds.tv.
Are you or someone you know looking for the latest movies and publications containing information about UFOs and extraterrestrials? The Open Minds store is stocked with books, DVDs, and other merchandise, including Open Minds magazine. the leading bi-monthly magazine that explores the UFO phenomenon. Single issues, as well as yearly subscriptions of Open Minds magazine, are available in the store for both domestic and international customers. The recently expanded DVD offerings include dozens of documentaries and conference presentations by experts in the field of ufology. The ever-expanding line of products, including DVDs, books, and branded Open Minds merchandise, make the Open Minds store an online destination worth visiting frequently. Browse the store today at store.openminds.tv to see the latest editions.
Welcome back to Open Minds Radio. Here now, former official spokesperson for the Mutual UFO Network, your host of Open Minds Radio, Alejandro Rojas.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. This is Alejandro Rojas, and I want to give a special thanks to one of my coworkers, Maureen, for coming in on the holidays. I mean, she is looking pretty, she looks like she needs more rest. So thanks for coming in, even though you're having a hard day on this holiday. But we have another special person on the line right now, Yvonne Smith. Are you there?
I am. Thank you for having me on, Alejandro.
Well, thank you for being on. You know, I've wanted to have you on the show for quite some time, so I'm really excited to have you on because you've been doing so much great work for so long in this field. And, you know, I know you are going to have Stan Romanek soon, and we'll talk a lot about that. But I would like to get some more background on your work also. And I guess I'll start off with the question. When you started learning hypnotherapy, was it with the intention to help abductees?
It was not really with the intention there because when it's just so, it's so difficult to, think about how the path led me here. But when I began studying hypnotherapy, I realized that hypnotherapy is used to help so many different, issues and types of ailments that people go through. Especially, I was very interested in working with cancer patients, which I did when I was at the clinic where my college was located, as well as post-traumatic stress disorder. And so when I opened up my practice and I began working with PTSD issues. People were starting to talk about their UFO experiences, and I, began receiving referrals from other therapists because they really did not want to handle anything having to do with UFOs. They just were not going to stick their necks out there. But I began working with PTSD victims, and I realized when people that were describing encounters with UFOs, they were describing their stress and anxiety, and it was all the same. Whether someone had suffered from a car accident or an encounter with a UFO, we'll say abduction, the symptoms were the same. Trauma is trauma, and no matter what, people need help. So I didn't realize at the time, though, how the work with UFO experiencers were just going to really take over my practice. I mean, it just began to snowball. And before I knew it, I was asked to lecture, and I began doing print interviews for local newspapers, and because people were intrigued about this,
right.
UFO encounters, and and then when I began Close Encounter Resource Organization, oh my God! I mean, the press were very interested in that because they're thinking, well, my gosh, if you felt like you needed to start a support group, then there must be a need for it.
Right.
And I said, I explained it's the same as any other support group that you've ever attended or ever heard of, but we're dealing with UFO encounters.
How did you first come across the whole concept of abduction?
Well, it's funny enough, my mother, several years ago, she read about, back when it was Life magazine featured an article on Betty and Barney Hill, believe it or not. I remember coming home from school and she said, look at this article. These people had an encounter with a UFO, or maybe at the time she said flying saucer. I don't think they called it UFO at the time. This was in the 60s.
Right.
And, time went on, and she was aware of, different researchers and so forth, and she wanted me to go with her to a lecture by Bud Hopkins at the time, I believe it was the Whole Life Expo in Pasadena, California.
Wow, neat. So your mom had an interest.
She had an interest, and she knew who Bud Hopkins was, and so, I accompanied her, and I met him and thought it was fascinating what he was talking about. And then the next thing I know, I took my son to a bookstore. He needed to do some research for a book project in school. I happened to be walking around the bookstore, and I came across this very unusual cover of a book, and I didn't know what this was. I picked it up, and happened to be Communion by Whitley Strieber. So I, read the side jacket there of the book and bought it and read it in 2 days, which was amazing to me because I never read anything in 2 days. And I guess it was just, it was my path, that I was to follow in this work. And, from then I read more and attended my first conference in Las Vegas. It was I believe that one was the MUFON Symposium, and it was held in Las Vegas. I forget what year that was. It had to be late 80s, had to be late 80s. So that was my first introduction to a conference, which was, again, very interesting.
It's funny you say that, too. Often, researchers in this field they reflect back and they think, I don't know how the heck I am where I am, or, they don't think, wow, that they would be someone that would be in the middle of an issue like this. But even though they're not sure how they got where they are, that many have a compulsion to still continue doing what they're doing.
Yeah, it's a, I guess it was, if you want to call it fate or destiny, for whatever reason, I was led to, open up my practice to the encounters, UFO encounters, and I guess, and I'm really glad it led me that way, because still there are so many traditional therapists that will not touch this subject. They're afraid of losing their license, and they're just not going to put their neck out on the chopping block, and that's really unfortunate.
Right.
And I've spoken to many of them. They want to remain anonymous. I do get referrals from the traditional therapists, like psychiatrists, for instance, because there's an area there that they're unable to tap into, and they feel that their patient is best served by referring them to someone who specializes in this work.
Right, which is one of the things in this field that I think is most unfortunate, especially with the denials, official denials, is that these are people who really need help. Like you had mentioned, they are suffering from PTSD, and there are people who need some sort of help.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why, that is the biggest reason that I started Close Encounter Resource Organization. CERO is the acronym. Because, these people were leaving my office and not realizing that they had no one to talk to about what happened in their session, or if something occurred again. They were many times unable to talk to their spouse, family members, certainly not coworkers. And so I started the group, which has met every month. It's once a month, for people to come together and talk about what their feelings and thoughts about all this, and all the high strangeness that goes on, without feeling that they're going to be ridiculed by their other members of the group. Now, I also have always welcomed significant others, spouses, family members, because it not only affects the person having the experience, it affects the entire family. But we've also learned over the years that it also affects the family in a way where other family members are having experiences as well. It's a family affair. It's not just one person.
And that's where I've personally seen families struggle the most. Is, well, if there's just the one person having the experiences and not the spouse, and the spouse is having a hard time believing, or if both are having the experiences and one of them is in denial over it. And that doesn't hold just for the spouse. I've seen that with parents and other family members as well.
Yes, it's so common, and it really boils down to so much fear. Fear of the unknown, and fear that this might be real, and that's why many of them will not look into it, don't want to discuss it. So I think they feel that if they discuss it openly, it makes it even more real in their world. And this is a very complex issue. And unfortunately, as you know, our own government denies it, and they've really been very successful in their denial. Where that's where the ridicule factor comes in, because people think, oh, I can't say anything because people are going to think I'm crazy, and that's really unfortunate. And that's why people like myself, researchers like myself, keep doing what we're doing, so that we can finally and hopefully bring this out of the closet, per se, so that everyone will feel comfortable, whether it's a sighting or an actual encounter, an abduction. Say.
Well, and to let people know, ysmith.com is the URL for your website, where they can learn more about your work and CERO.
Yes.
ysmith.com. And someone had brought up in the chat just a moment ago sleep paralysis. And this is something I was thinking of asking you as well, at least in that, as far as I know, one difference would be sleep paralysis doesn't seem to cause post-traumatic effects.
No, absolutely not. And, sleep paralysis has been thrown around by so many debunkers and, hard skeptics, that they're all suffering from sleep paralysis. They throw them all under one pot. And my question is, well, okay, how does this explain people who are not asleep at all? They're driving, sometimes by themselves, many times with other people, other family members, and they see a strange object in the sky, very bright lights, and before they know it, they are, missing 1 to 3 hours in their life. They weren't asleep whatsoever. People that were in their homes, say, reading a book, either on the couch in the living room or in their beds, and they see a light, very bright bluish white light, usually come into their home, come into the room, they're rendered paralyzed at that time. They know they can't move, but they certainly were not asleep. And we do have to, really think about, as you mentioned, the PTSD. PTSD occurs. It's the effects of a traumatic experience in someone's life. A great example, of course, is very obviously our military going through the war and coming home. They suffer from PTSD. Back in when it was World War II, when they were suffering from this, all the soldiers coming back, we had no idea what was happening to them. I cannot recall when post-traumatic stress disorder that when that was coined. It could have been during the return of our Vietnam vets.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very real, what people experience. I've worked with many accident victims, people who were abused as children, or people that were, sexually attacked, say a rape. It's PTSD, and as I mentioned, it's all the same symptoms, whether it's a UFO abduction or a car accident. So you mentioned sleep paralysis. No, I know that sleep paralysis, and I know that happens with someone if they wake up from a sleep and they're unable to move, and we just we know that if they move one finger or a hand, or it'll break the paralysis.
Mm-hmm.
But they certainly do not suffer from PTSD for a long period of time, like another person would.
Right. I've had sleep paralysis 3 times. The third time I was able to break through it, but at no time in any of those events was I really traumatized at all. I noted it and went back to sleep, or the last time I forced myself to move a finger or something and broke out of it, like you talked about. But I wasn't traumatized. It was just, I don't know, it's a weird state of mind.
Yes, and I've had it too. I've had sleep paralysis. I've not suffered from something in the room or a bright light.
Me either.
And it seems that in the episodes that I've had, and they've been very few, of sleep paralysis, it's when I'm extremely tired. I've noted that. But the same here, Alejandro, is I do not suffer from PTSD.
Yeah.
So there's a dramatic difference. We can't blanket all these people from all over the world and saying, oh, well, they all have sleep paralysis, or they were all dreaming. This is certainly a physical event, and it certainly is worldwide. So, because when I've traveled and I've lectured in other parts of the world, people come up to me. Something that struck a chord with them during my lecture, and maybe saw a slide or two that I presented. Many times these people are unable to speak English, but they saw something in my presentation, or heard something in my presentation that resonated with them. That they felt that they suffered the same type of encounter.
Great. What are the symptoms of PTSD?
People are unable to sleep. They suffer recurring dreams. They are afraid of maybe a certain area, a certain stretch of road, a certain room in the house. Let me see. I have a whole list of these.
Right.
But mainly, they're unable to focus on everyday life. They keep thinking about, the incident. It just affects every part of their life. They're not able to sleep. They're not able to concentrate at work. And the recurring dreams or the very vivid dreams that they have could be an indication that something happened.
Mm-hmm. So in the steps in dealing with PTSD, it seems as though the steps with dealing with, other sorts of PTSD are similar than with abductions, because I know a lot of my uncles and my father were in Vietnam and suffered through that, and I've seen that cycle, as well as working with abductees, and that often, even with, let's say, veterans, they have there's a denial aspect where they don't want to face it, and then they face it, which can be difficult to begin with before they begin a healing process.
Absolutely. It is an entire process. When I work with experiencers, of course, they're very apprehensive at first about, do I really want to know? Maybe I should leave this alone, and they'll leave it alone for a while, but they realize that it's haunting them. They keep thinking about it. They can't, they're unable to sleep. It's affecting every aspect of their life. So they then proceed with their sessions. And as we bring up the hidden memories of what occurred to them, sometimes something very obvious, say they've woken up with a strange mark on their body that wasn't there the night before, and they know that it wasn't there the night before. Even though it's frightening, because, when I regress someone, they relive the experience. And, of course, I use different techniques where we can get through it without them experiencing the tremendous fear or the discomfort or pain. But the important thing is for them to bring all the memories up so that we can deal with it one at a time and make sense of it. And eventually, when they realize that this was real, they had a UFO experience, but they came out of it, they're alive, they're loved by their families and their friends. And this is when we start incorporating it into their life. They not only will have these sessions, they will attend eventually the CERO meetings to meet other people so that they don't feel so isolated, and that their experience really isn't all that strange because all these other people experience the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So many similarities. So, when they meet other people. So it's a process, and it is a process for healing, and they do heal. And I mentioned when I was lecturing in Roswell, we were on a panel. I was on a panel with Travis Walton and Kathleen Martin, who's the niece of Betty Hill. We were talking about, obviously, abduction, and I mentioned that I have, in the 20 years that I've been doing this, I've never had anybody come to me to tell me that they regretted going through the hypnotic regressions. Mm-hmm. They feel that they did benefit from it, and that they were able to get on with their lives. And then they met all these other wonderful people that they became friends. And so I really honestly have never had anybody regret the hypnosis experience.
Yeah, that's one thing. I know it's difficult for a lot of people to go to therapy or to start working on these sort of issues, but you'd probably agree more important to face it than to keep it shoved away, because it does manifest itself in negative ways in your life if you shove it away.
Oh, absolutely. You could shove it away for a certain amount of time, but it will start surfacing. It'll surface, and when it gets to that point where it's interfering with their lives, I mean, it could affect a relationship or a marriage, and that's unnecessary, because there is help out there for people. And I mentioned before, we're working very hard to get this out in the open, and be able to talk about this freely without without ridicule. Many years ago, and I mentioned this on a talk show one time, nobody wanted to believe that parents were abusing their own children. Mm-hmm. Nobody wanted to believe it. And now, years later, there's therapists and support groups and, places for children to go to, for parents to have therapy. It's out in the open, in other words. So I think if we keep working at this, we'll be able to accomplish the same goal of being able to establish that this is real, that people aren't crazy, they're not hoaxing, they don't want, attention, they're not doing this for money. I've heard it all over the years.
Right.
So, I think I'm just one of those people that were meant to work with this, to help people, get through it. And, I think it's, for me, I've met so many wonderful people like yourself and my other friends and colleagues over the years. I have friends from all over the world. It makes the world a smaller place. When you travel to other countries, you meet other people. And, of course, now with our technology, with email, we're able to keep in contact. Where I remember when I first started my practice, oh, my gosh, my phone bills were, tremendous, because that was before we start using email.
Right, yeah, and there's still some researchers, as you know, such as Dr. Leo Sprinkle, one of the pioneers in this area, who doesn't have a computer. He still does everything by snail mail.
Yeah, I know. It is really, for some people it's really difficult to move into that, into this technology. I mean, I was so used to working with my slides and with a slide projector when I was lecturing, and I finally, I have my computer and I'm doing PowerPoint, but that was a little scary, to go to that.
Yeah.
But but it's so. I think it's wonderful now that we can keep in contact, and people will email me from all over the United States, all over the world. In fact, just today I received an email from Spain, someone who needs help. So it's, trying to keep up with it all is, it is, it's difficult at times.
Right.
And I can't be there to help everybody, but I try to maybe refer them, but there's still in so many other parts of even our own country that there's no one that really does this work.
Right. Well, we're going to take a short break in a couple minutes, and then I've got a lot of questions about motivations and things like this behind the beings themselves and their nature. But before we go to break, I did want to ask one thing that seems interesting, and this even came up in the Betty and Barney Hill case. Like you say, these memories are resurfacing, although it's questionable but whether they were intended to or not. And in Betty Hill's case, they told her, in her recollection, you're not going to remember this. And she says, oh, yes, I will. And she got an argument. No, you won't. Yes, I will. No, you won't. And eventually she did remember. Why do you think people are remembering, or do you think it isn't intentional that these people are supposed to be remembering these things?
Well, many of them are told the same thing that Betty was told, that they're not going to remember this, especially when they're abducted as children. And I'm sure these beings, instill a post-hypnotic suggestion in these people. But with the way our subconscious works our subconscious is meant to protect us. So it will protect us from a trauma. But eventually the memories do start surfacing, little bits and pieces. With the regression, now it's difficult work because we don't get all the answers in one session or two sessions, and we don't get them all from A to Z. I've worked with people for years. Sometimes session number 3 will make sense with session number 10. We're trying to put together an enormous puzzle. But sometimes it takes a while for these memories to resurface. I have worked with people who had a classic missing time experience, yet they didn't realize they were missing any time until 20, 30, 40 years later.
Wow.
Which is another strange aspect to all this.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a whole group of family members stand out on a patio, and they're having a little gathering, and they see this very strange lights in the sky. They know it's not an airplane, it's flying very low, and they're all excited, and they're talking about this, and they're watching this, and then they turn around, they all go in the house, and no one talks about it for years.
Yeah.
I've interviewed so many families that happened to.
Yeah, really interesting. So we'll go ahead and we're going to take a really short break here just so we can take a break to freshen up and things like that. We'll be back in just a couple minutes with Yvonne Smith. Just a couple messages from Open Minds to remind you about some of the cool stuff we have going on. So stay tuned. You're listening to Open Minds Radio.
Open Minds Magazine, the exciting new publication by Open Minds Production, is in stores now. Open Minds Magazine is your look inside the fascinating world of UFO-related phenomena, including extraterrestrials, abductions, cattle mutilations, crop circles, alien implants, and more. Open Minds Magazine provides readers with current research, investigations, and news, all delivered in a stunning graphical presentation. Pick up your copy today and prepare to have your mind opened. That's Open Minds Magazine, available now at Barnes & Noble, Borders, and online at openminds.tv.
Having been referred to as the CNN of UFOs, OpenMinds.tv is the hub for news relating to the alien UFO phenomenon. With daily updates of exclusive photos, videos, merchandise, and investigations, OpenMinds.tv is bringing UFO and extraterrestrial research to a global audience. The website features the Open Minds store stocked with books, DVDs, and other merchandise, including Open Minds magazine. Visit OpenMinds.tv, the definitive source for UFO-related news. That's www.openminds.tv.
Open Minds Production is proud to present the 20th anniversary of the International UFO Congress, coming to its new home at the Radisson Fort McDowell Resort and Casino in Scottsdale, Arizona. This is the premier annual event for UFO researchers, enthusiasts, and the general public with an interest in mysterious phenomena. Come listen to expert ufologists, government officials, and respected scientists presenting information relating to UFOs, extraterrestrials, crop circles, abductions, cover-ups, and more at the largest UFO conference in the country. The 20th anniversary of the International UFO Congress takes place February 23rd through February 27th. Visit ufocongress.com for more information, including sponsorship and vendor opportunities.
Welcome back to Open Minds Radio. Here now, former official spokesperson for the Mutual UFO Network, your host of Open Minds Radio, Alejandro Rojas.
All right, welcome back to Open Minds Radio. Yvonne, before we left to go to break, we were talking about people's memories resurfacing, although, like we had discussed, they were told their memories wouldn't resurface. Do you think this points to possibly these beings not understanding us as well as they think they do?
That could possibly be. I mean, we're pretty strong. We all have strong constitutions, and we have very strong subconscious minds. I mean, the subconscious is much stronger than our conscious mind. I mean, it makes up 80% of our total mind power. So that's why so much gets registered in the subconscious that, we don't remember. All of our lives, we have many computers within us. So things that may have happened in our childhood, and I'm not just talking about abduction, but, other things in life that we don't quite remember, but it's in our subconscious. So they probably really, they're obviously intelligent beings, but they may not realize how strong we are and how strong our subconscious is, and how determined some people are. I mean, Betty Hill was a very determined woman as other people are, and they realize, this happened to me, and I have a right to know. So when these memories begin to surface, little by little bits and pieces, people do come to me and say, I didn't give permission for this to happen, and I really want to know what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm pretty good at, after 20 years of bringing these memories forward. So, and, people, as I mentioned before, even if some of these memories or experiences are frightening and really we're still trying to make sense of why some of these experiments happen. What are they doing when they take samples, blood samples, skin samples? They want our DNA. What are they doing with it? People become indignant, and many say, "Look, if I would, if they had just asked me for my permission, maybe I'd cooperate with them."
Mm-hmm.
But I think that determination that we have really, really helps bring everything forward.
Right. Which kind of gets me back, and there's been some debate in the chat, and of course this is kind of a hot topic, is getting back to agendas, because there's and motivations behind the abduction phenomena, because there are a lot of opinions, and you've worked with all of the people who are on the front in all of these opinions, such as Bud Hopkins and David Jacobs seem to have a similar opinion of perhaps some deception going on here by the creatures. I just put together, and it's going to be in our next magazine, an interview I did, or some with Barbara Lamb, where all the different types of beings she has experienced by doing these regressions and their motivations, and she has a different perspective, like Dr. Sprinkle, where it's more very positive that these things, all of these creatures are here to help us. So there's a wide variety, and then you kind of have John Mack in the middle, who wasn't even sure if these are physical events happening. Where do you fall in all of that?
Well, oh gosh, it's just everything is just
very difficult.
I haven't formed a final decision on what all of this means, what all this is. I know that it is a physical event that happens to people. People are actually taken from their natural environment to, say, the spacecraft and examined. These beings, they materialize. They can come through walls, through doors, and they don't have to open doors or open windows. They'll materialize and dematerialize. And it seems that they're able to do this with us, who we're solid beings, and they're able to bring these people from their environment through walls and through windows without opening them. So they have that capability. I'm not saying that all of the experiences and all of these beings, and there has to be so many, probably hundreds of different types of beings with all different agendas. The ones that I'm mainly dealing with, and the reason why people come to me for help, are the ones that, the little gray beings that seem to be the workers, the little short ones that seem to be the abductors. They have a beehive mentality, so there is definitely a chain of command on the spacecraft. But they're the ones that do the abducting. They don't seem to have any feeling or sense of the person being frightened. They really don't have that capability that we have. Now, in the beginning, the experience seems to be very frightening, of course, because the person is taken, and they don't know what's happened to them. They're taken to a very strange environment. What Travis remembers, just a very short time of his 5-day experience, is being in this room with these very short beings with the big eyes, he's thinking he was in a hospital, and until he saw these beings, and he became very frightened. Then he came across the human-looking one in another room, and the people that I've dealt with also see very human-looking beings. They could be walking on our street, and we wouldn't look at them and say, oh, they might be alien beings. I mean, they look very human. Some of them may be here, may come with the intention of helping us. The ones that I'm working with people that I'm regressing, they're told that the beings are not allowed to interfere with us. They're observing us. They're very interested in what we're doing down here, and especially with all of our weaponry and wars that we have. I think they're concerned about that, our nuclear weapons, but they're not allowed to interfere. So I can't say that all the beings are here to come down here and help us and save us from ourselves. I mean, we haven't seen it yet. There are wonderful beings up there. I hope I come across them. I hope they're telling me what they're doing so that I can be more effective in my work. But I haven't been told anything yet. So I really am not coming from they're all evil, and they're all doing evil things, or they're here to help us. I know that from studying all of this that they do have, these certain beings do have an agenda, and I feel that the agenda surrounds the hybrid program. As strange as this sounds, but it just seems that because they take ova constantly, they're taking sperm samples, and then time and time again, people are abducted again and shown babies, they're shown children in different stages of life, and they're told that this child is theirs and they need to interact with it. Now, what's going to happen with these hybrid children, is, I don't know. I mean, are they going to all live here among us? They may be down here already. I know people have mentioned that they feel that they've come across beings, that are hybrid. They weren't quite, they weren't quite human. There was something about them that was a little strange. I've been hearing this more and more, and I know Bud and David have come across that as well. But I mean, I don't, I wish they would tell me more.
Right.
They would give me more answers about, what the ultimate agenda is. Now, if they're creating all these hybrids, I'd like to know what the reason is. Are they here to take us over? They're certainly not. They certainly are not here to destroy us. I mean, I really feel that that could have been done a long time ago, when they first started showing up here. So I truly don't feel that they're, we're in that Independence Day type of, situation. But I do feel, I think they're telling the truth. These certain beings are saying that, telling these people that they abduct is that they're not allowed to interfere with us.
Well, I want to bring this up because there's a lot of people in the chat, a few very active people in the chat talking about this, and I know you're friends with this gentleman as well as I am. I'm pretty sure because he goes to Roswell, Joe Jordan, and his work, and some people in the chat are bringing up, which I know you're familiar with, the similarities between abduction and demonic possession and some of the things described in the Bible. And these guys, of course, are looking at it from the view, like Joe does, that perhaps it is something demonic, and Joe believes he's found that you can use the Jesus' name and evoke his name and help end these abduction experiences. Have you found that, and what do you feel about, it's a difficult topic, but what do you feel about that angle?
I definitely feel no. I do know that they are not in any way similar to demonic possession. People, of course, I encourage people to use whatever protection they want to use to empower themselves. People have used prayer. People have used just a protection around them, say white light or a beautiful golden light. But I have not found yet that anything, if they invoke Jesus' name or as many prayers as they say, it may stop it for a while, but it does not stop it forever. And certainly, demonic possession is very evil. I mean, it's something that frightens me, and I'm glad I'm not dealing with that that particular aspect of evil. Now, abduction is frightening in the beginning, especially because people don't know what's happening to them. But I have a very, very good friend who is a minister, and he was very interested in my work with UFO abductions. And I invited him to a CERO meeting one time, and I said, I want you to tell me, because he worked with exorcism. And I said, I want you to tell me if you feel this has anything to do with demonic possession or the dealing with the devil in any way. And when he attended the meeting, he met the CERO members. Later he told me, he said, Yvonne, if this was anything evil like demonic possession, he said, when I've been in exorcism, been present in, with this evil, he goes, the hair in back of my neck will stand up. He says it's so frightening, but he said when he met the CERO members and they were talking about their experiences, he said there was in no way was it connected to demonic possession. Mm-hmm. So, and it really it bothers me that that this comparison is made not only by Joe, but I know I've heard this over all the last 20 years. I mean, it's nothing new to me, but I know for a fact that it is not one and the same. And to me, thank goodness.
Right, and I know the head demonologist, or at least until he passed recently, Monsignor Corrado Balducci, felt that they were. What's that? I'm sorry.
I met him as well. Several times. I met him in Italy, and I met him in Washington, D.C.
And he felt similar. There are two separate phenomena.
Yes. After hearing him say that, after I spent time with my friend who was the minister, and he told me, he said, oh, there's in no way connected. That made me feel even better because this is a separate issue. I mean, we're dealing with beings from other planets, or maybe maybe when I say a parallel universe. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's so many different theories out there. I don't have the definitive answers. It could be all of the above. But I know that these people are experiencing. They're having interactions with beings from other worlds, and I mean, it's hard to explain, but it isn't anything evil like what we're talking about, demonic. Did you, Alejandro? Did you watch the movie Fourth Kind?
Oh yes.
Now, when I sat there, and I definitely wanted to see this because it had a lot to do with my work, and I sat there, and my first impression was, seeing these people that were in hypnosis, and I cringed when I
Right.
watched it.
Right.
It to me, it was more of a these people were possessed.
Right.
No, I've not had anybody levitate in hypnosis. I've not had anybody go home and commit suicide or kill their families. I mean, I was horrified.
So was I. I felt the same way, and I went with Antonio Maurizio here, and we went together, and that's what I was really most almost offended by working in this field, because it so misrepresents the real research, which is interesting enough, and they try to play it off as if it was real, and then you talk to people and they think that some of those videos in that movie were real, because they said they were, but they weren't.
No, they did play it off as this was a documentary, and I've had people email me just so frightened about, oh my God, can this happen? Was this real? And I had a psychiatrist write me about this, and I definitely tell them, oh, absolutely not. This was not real. It was just a movie. That hypnosis, hypnotherapy, and regression is safe in someone's hands who's had the proper training. But what struck me, though, was that it looked very demonic.
Right.
It looked like they were possessed,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what bothered me.
Right. That is it was, that movie was just awful for many levels.
Terrible.
It was
But,
sad.
It's unfortunate. Yeah.
But to go back to, I think one of the interesting things about this, about abductions that we've yet to see, and is the physical part of it really getting as much emphasis as it should. The physiological effects that people have. This is definitely, in my experience and yours, as you had mentioned, and the many other people like you who have done decades of work, that it is a physical. It's something that John Mack really, for instance, didn't tackle, and I love John Mack. He was a great thinker. But there are physical instances. People do come back with scoop marks, other marks on their body, and then there's the whole implant phenomena.
Yes.
It seems
Yes.
like it's an area that's ripe for more science to be done.
Yes. Oh, yeah. We have a long way to go, but there's people like my friend and colleague, Dr. Roger Lear, who for the last several years has been very instrumental in getting these surgeries done, getting the X-rays done as needed, getting the surgeries done, and the analysis. Everything takes money, and most of the time we do this out of pocket. We don't have funding. I really want to work towards that, because I think we all deserve to have funding in some way, because this is very serious work with the implants, and with people coming back with. I present the marks and scars that are in a triangular shape, needle marks in a triangular shape, bruises in a triangular shape. I've asked doctors in the past, how does someone bruise or mark in a triangle? And they have no way of explaining it. So yes, I mean, we, like I mentioned, we do have a long way to go. But we're still working towards that.
Mm-hmm.
And I really do implore people out there that have the means and the interest in this to think about funding us, fund organizations like myself, like mine, CERO, who these are a group of people that have these tremendous experiences that want to share their experiences. That's why I wrote my first book, Chosen. I wanted to get it out there. I put the actual transcripts in the book so that people know this is what people experience when they've had this experience and they're undergoing hypnosis. I'm having as you mentioned earlier in the show, I'm having we have guests come in about twice a year, sponsored by CERO. We're having Stan Romanek come out this month, September 18th, in Orange County, California, because he has a very interesting and, of course, very controversial case. It's controversial because I think it's very difficult to believe that he has all of this documentation. He has people that have, videotaped the same object that he has. But I want to present people like Stan to come out and share their stories, their experiences, so that everybody has a chance to talk about what they experience. I'm having, another guest speaker in May, Travis Walton, and to finally come out to Southern California. So I mean, we're trying to keep bringing this to the forefront, and I think with all these, these extractions of, what we call implants. I mean, this should be on the 6 o'clock news, and yet it isn't. Our media ignores it, and I think there's a reason for it.
Or treats it poorly. I was, of course, because since I've been so close, and my listeners know a lot about Stan Romanek's case, and not all of my listeners believe in the case, even though I, of course, was a lead investigator and had my own experiences, and luckily, even though they don't agree, they come back to the show. And I don't blame people, it's a difficult thing, and I just encourage that they go like September 18th to see him. Unfortunately, he's called and asked me to come out, and I'm going to be in California, but I'm going to be 5 hours north in San Leandro at the Rubens X Fest.
I heard about that, yes.
Yeah, so it's unfortunate that, it's funny, I'll be in the same state, but won't be able to make it out there.
Yeah, so if your listeners, like I mentioned, I want to give everyone a chance, to speak about their experiences. And since he's in Stan Romanek's in Colorado, I wanted to give him the opportunity to come out to California and talk about his case. So as you mentioned, it's September 18th at the Learning Light Foundation in Orange County, California. They can send me an email if they want more information, or go onto my website, as you mentioned, ysmith.com. But when I lecture, it's the same thing as I lecture. I put it out there, the information out there, and just let everyone decide for themselves what they want to take from it.
And I hope people go see Stan who live in the area, and my listeners who are skeptical, to see what I've been talking about, or what we've been talking about, because all of these things he's had included in his life, scoop marks, implants. I've been there to witness this, and I've been there to examine these things, and I mean, I rubbed his skin raw, with those scoop marks that fluoresced under the black light. I know, that wasn't anything above the surface. And I can't believe we only have like a minute or so left. We are almost out of time. It flew by.
It sure did. I really enjoyed this, Alejandro. Thank you so much for having me on, and I hope your listeners will, if they have any questions, they can, welcome to send me an email. They can get my email from my website. They could also, if they're interested in purchasing Chosen, my first book, I'm in the process of writing my second and third right now, but they could also purchase Chosen through my website or on Amazon. And I encourage people to go out there and buy our books and give them out as, Christmas gifts, birthday gifts, and help us spread the word.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. ysmith.com. We'll have Yvonne on again because I have a ton more questions to ask her.
Wonderful. I look forward to it.
All right. And next week, we've got Mark D'Antonio, who does a photo and video analysis for MUFON on. So you're going to want to check that out. We'll talk about all the cases that he's researched there. So thanks again for tuning in on the show. We'll talk to you next week. Be sure to check us out, openminds.tv. Thank you.